Your business is called Creative for Business. So tell me, what is the role of creativity in business? Because for some, it's perhaps not an obvious connection.
No, I mean, creativity is one of the components of innovation, but the creativity is, people think of it normally just as ways of generating ideas, and yes, it helps with idea generation, but it also helps with just general sort of management of business. It's an addition to the management toolkit. I mean, creative techniques can be used from anything from, as I said, idea generation to running meetings to working on business plans and business strategy.
So is it a sort of a way of thinking, a mindset, as it were?
It is a way of thinking, but it's not always going for the wacky. It's having those things at your disposal and thinking laterally and selecting the right tool for the job.
As I say, most businesses don't sort of think of themselves as creative or creative businesses unless that is specifically what they're in, the sector they're in. So how do you persuade your average sort of hardened businessman that creativity can be a force for good in their business?
Well, the bottom line is one way of doing it. We've just we're in the middle of the recession. Times are tough, and a lot of businesses have been business process re-engineered. When you do that, they're very lean, but you take the flexibility out. So a lot of people will see that, be thinking, how on earth do I respond to the recession? And that's in a way where the creativity comes in. I mean, simple examples, we'll see, for instance, dairy farmers deciding not to sell milk, but start maybe manufacturing their own sort of yogurts and things like that. I mean, that's a simple example, but that's the sort of things that it leads to. Not just using maybe the products that people make, but thinking of the skills they use and what they can do with those.
So is creativity just another word for innovation?
No, it isn't. Innovation has many different components. People define it in many different ways, but I have a very simple way of defining innovation, which is basically that innovation is some function of creativity, which is coming up with ideas, and knowledge or know-how, which is things that we already know. So I'm not saying throw everything away and completely reinvent it, but there's those two components, and around that is a framework, and that is the way businesses of all sizes, small or large, the way they're managed, their attitudes to risk, what they do for their employees in terms of, I suppose, human resources development and stretch, what they know about their environment. So in fact, marketing is brought into that as well. So there's a whole framework. So what I like to think of is, as far as innovation is concerned, a business can be, if you like, an innovation machine. So a little like a chameleon, it becomes flexible and adaptable. So it's ideal for the current recession. But creativity is one significant component of it, but they're not the same thing.
Could you give me an example of perhaps one of your own clients where creativity has helped and has done something very positive?
Well, I think in fact, the first, I suppose, very interesting, in quotes, thing that I did was actually abroad. It wasn't even in this country. It was a mattress manufacturer in Mexico, and they manufactured mattresses very nicely, thousands per day. But they were facing some tough times. So one of the things that I was involved in with them was actually an innovation program, initially lasting a few months. But that led them initially from just bog standard mattresses to mattresses with plastic springs, not metal springs, which meant they could enter the healthcare market straight away. There were some variants on those mattresses, which meant that they could get some new products into the market within a few months. But then they started thinking sort of laterally. They knew effectively about people's bodies. They knew about springing. They knew about fabric. So what they then did was form an alliance, if you like, with some designers. who designed furniture. So then they started thinking about producing furniture, which is what they did. So those are the sorts of things that businesses can do.
If you were to give a piece of advice to a small or a new business that was just starting out, with regard to the issue of creativity, what would that advice be?
I would say keep doing it, because a small business starting out is probably fairly creative, although they don't think of themselves as that. But the pressure then is on from, you get advice from banks, from Business Link, from wherever to formalise all your processes. You swap the bookkeeper for the accountant, and you must have, I don't know, sales pipelines, and you have to formalise everything. Well, yes, those things do need to be, I suppose, beefed up as you grow. But it's a bit like going from childhood to adulthood. Don't leave that creativity behind, because once what your company was built on, the products, processes become established, become the norm in the market, is when you need to take another step. So don't leave it behind.